Hi everyone, I'm Sam Valenti. Welcome to the very first episode of Backlot Pass. And I didn't tell you this. This is the first episode of this podcast. So,
Wow,
so,
I'm
so
so
you're,
honored.
yeah, this is quite awesome. And this is a podcast where I'm going to interview people in the entertainment industry. And on this first episode, I'm joined by an amazing actor and a great acting teacher as well. So if you have anyone who wants to get acting lessons, this is the person they should talk to.
Oh,
Cathryn de Prume. Cathryn, how are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm really enjoying our beautiful California weather here.
That is great. That is great to hear. Now, something that I've seen you've been doing, I've seen you've been very active in supporting the ongoing writer's strike that's going on right now. There's a chance possibly that SAG-AFTRA could be going on a strike as well. There's just a lot going on right now. So I just want to know kind of what's your overall take on everything that's happening.
Well, I think it's not just the entertainment industry, our whole world has changed as well, especially United States. Sorry, my voice is so scratchy. Went to New York City for my high school reunion, my performing arts high school reunion, and I was so excited to see everybody. I screamed my head off, and that's what happened to my voice. But anyway, about the strike. So I feel like I don't want to get political, but our country and our world has gotten just so like the 1% are getting so rich, and all the middle class people are like can't afford anything, can't afford to buy a house, that's for sure. It's just become such a struggle. And so many writers, I mean, the writers make these shows. They start the ideas, and the fact that they're not getting fair payment is just it's just so unfair when, Amazon, Bezos, and the heads of these companies are making so much money. They have record profits, and yet they can't pay the creators, a fair wage. So, and now the actors are next. I'm glad that the directors are happy with what they got. I don't know the details, but yeah, I've been feeling a little kind of burnt out with the way we've been auditioning, especially since the pandemic. We've had to audition where we tape ourselves, and it's a lot of work. It's like putting a production together so fast. Usually, not uh, often you get an audition, you're notified about it, and then they want it either the next day or the very next day after that. So you have so little time to prepare. If you have a life, if you're a mom, if you run a business like I do, you have to just throw up everything out of your hands, get childcare, and find a way to record your scene, light it, edit it, um, work on the acting, which is the most important part of it, and do a good job. And it's been challenging for me, to be quite honest. So I'm hoping that that's one of the things that are going to change. I know that UK actors, they worked out something where they have a minimum of amount of days when they get an audition. So you can't force an actor to whip up an audition in a day. They have to, I don't remember the details, but I think it's like 3 days. Um, so there's a lot of things. And then payment. Oh my God. You used to be able to make a living at this career, and you can't anymore. I mean, there are a lot of celebrities who cannot make a living. You do. So nowadays, you probably see a lot of shows where, let's say, on Netflix or something, there's 10 episodes, right? So an actor doesn't necessarily do all 10 episodes. So they're getting away with calling that actor a guest star. They're not giving them a series regular credit, and they're not paying them like a series regular. And they'll be a big star, you know. And sure, sometimes maybe they negotiate because they have a name and stuff, but you can't possibly survive and with rent or mortgage, on a few episodes. You have to, so it's just we have a lot we're fighting for. I'm ready to strike. In fact, I'm already on strike. So, like I the way it's going, I'm not willing to work. I'm not willing to work. So we'll see what happens and what they negotiate. But I think everybody in our country needs to stand up for fair wages. You know, it's not fair that the 1% are making all this money and the middle class, you know, can't survive and raise a family. It's very hard for an actor to not just pay their rent and their mortgage and everything, but to raise a family and pay for that. It's tough.
Yeah, yeah, it's a it's a crazy world that we're living in right now, and and I just want to say that I absolutely agree with everything you just said. And hopefully with the strike stuff, hopefully these, hopefully the writers and the actors and just everyone can get paid fairly, and there's a good positive resolution to everything that's going on right now.
Fingers crossed, fingers crossed.
Yes,
It's also
absolutely.
affecting every aspect of our, I'm in Los Angeles, so it's not just the entertainment field. The entertainment field trickles down to the dry cleaners, every industry is affected by this strike. So I'm really hoping it gets resolved soon.
Yep, I absolutely agree. Now I kind of want to, I want to get into your background here. And just in general, kind of how did you get into, acting? Like did that kind of, I'm assuming that kind of started like an early age.
Yeah, I just was always, and I'm still fascinated by people, human beings. I always loved watching people. As a kid, I grew up in Brooklyn. We had a brownstone, and my parents rented out the upper two floors and rented out all the rooms to the wackiest people. Like all of them had some kind of quirk or just all very unique individuals. A lot of the different languages from different countries and problems and mental illnesses and so I was just fascinated and I thought I want to tell these stories. I want to tell these people's stories. Also, my mother was so interesting. She was a Russian immigrant and just really her own person and very wacky, very unique. And and I always thought there's a story here. I want to share these treasures of humans. Um, so when actually, and it was preschool, when they said they handed out books of careers. I don't know why they would do this, but poor kids. But there was a book of one of them was to be a clown, and I was like, that's the one I want to do. I want to be a clown. I want to entertain and make people laugh. And then as I started to realize there was actually a career in acting, then I told my mother that's what I wanted to do. And she was like, no, you're not going to do that. That's a horrible profession and it's too hard and they'll treat you terribly. But I went behind her back and I saved up babysitting money and I enrolled myself in an acting class in Brooklyn and I went on a bus. Back then, kids were a little more wild and independent. And yeah, I started taking an acting class and then I started doing, I joined an on-stage improv company in my neighborhood that was, I think I was 13 when I did that, where the audience would just yell out something and we do it. And that's kind of what I'm teaching now, which is so fun. And I think it's so healthy for kids to have that spontaneity. Um, and it's just so fun. So yeah, and then I auditioned for the High School of Performing Arts, which I found out about, and that's the reunion I just went to. Um, and yeah, just I was so determined and very myopic. I was just this is what I want to do, nothing else. And I was yeah, so it's that's how I started.
Well, I think that's awesome. Know that you had that vision for yourself. You committed to it, and look where it's gotten you. Look at what you've been able to do. It's pretty amazing.
Thank you, thank you.
Yes, and as you mentioned, you attended the High School of Performing Arts in New York City. As you said, you had that awesome reunion. You'll have to tell me more about that. But what was your experience like, being there and not just learning, but being able to connect with the other students who wanted to go into performing arts, just like yourself?
That place was a dream come true. I wish there were more schools like that for everybody. Um, I just cherished every day I got up to go to that school. And I'm so glad I cherished it while I was there. Um, I mean, could you imagine going to school and getting to play every day? Like that's what we did. I mean, we did learn, academics, but which I wasn't crazy about, but I needed to learn anyway. Um, but I just, well, meeting other people who were similar, that was such a gift to me. My daughter's walking by with her video. Sorry. Um, Meeting other kids who had similar dreams was it was so refreshing. Also, I felt like for the first time I found my people. For the first time, like other people who were willing to be weird. It was almost like if you were normal, you didn't belong there. You had to have some quirks and everyone was unique. There were so many different colors of people, different people came from all different backgrounds, like from very rich to very poor, living in the projects, and we all just loved each other and supported each other. Um, yeah, it was just paradise. And then as soon as I got there, that's when the movie Fame came out. And it really was very much like the movie. Sure, it was a little exaggerated, but it was really that kind of spontaneous creativity and yeah, it was magic, pure magic.
Wow, wow, that is, that, no, it's really great to hear about. I think you make a great point that wouldn't it be great if there were more schools like that for like different professions? Like imagine how cool that would be.
Yes, I know in California we have a few, and I'm definitely gonna keep my eye out for my daughter who's very into art. Um, but yeah, a lot of kids know early on what they want to do. Some don't, and that's great. And but the ones who really are clear that they want to pursue something, yeah, let them do it. And having gone back to my reunion, a lot of people did not continue with acting. Acting's a friggin' hard career. It's so hard. So a lot of them let that go, but they still cherish their time there and it influenced them. Acting is it's so good for you. Like it's so therapeutic. It opens up your heart and soul and so it prepares you for anything. And a lot of the people that I saw after many years who had gone into other professions are so happy in their other professions. I think because they were so in touch with themselves that they knew they would find joy. You know what I mean? Like they didn't sell out. I didn't feel like any of them had sold out and given up acting and this is like a second choice. I felt like the people that I talked to all are doing really wonderful things with their lives now.
I got to ask, what was just what was that reunion like that you were just at? Getting to see like after so long. What was that like?
Well, actually, there's a lot of us in California, and we still hang out to this day. My very best friend in the world lives 2 minutes from me, and we met at high school performing arts. So we've been like sisters. And there's a whole bunch of us in Los Angeles who still connect regularly. But the ones who I hadn't seen in a long time, it was just amazing. And you just wish you could see them more often. You know how that is when you see people you care about. Um, oh my God, it was so funny because it was so hot and humid, and everybody was drenched in sweat, and everybody was hugging each other regardless of the sweat, and it was just like a sweat bath. It was hilarious. But then we all got on these steps to take a photo, and then some people just started singing it impromptu, this song from Fame, and it was just so beautiful. Like we just were singing, and this bystander, this guy who was just sitting nearby, burst into tears while we were singing. He was so moved by us. Um, it was just a wonderful time. And then we went to this club where the place where the reunion was, and we danced and reminisced, and it was just a really beautiful reunion.
Man,
And we're going to promise to stay in touch more, and that kind of like that.
wow, that sounds like such a fun time. Wow, that's awesome. Like
I'm
I
so glad I went.
imagine that's just that, it's a great experience to have, and just, just have like all those positive vibes around, like just that's awesome.
Yeah. And it was multi years too. So some of the years I didn't know as much as others, but it was just that's what's so beautiful about when you go to a school like that is like it's like I don't even might not even know someone, like I don't even remember them, but when they say they went to the high school performing arts, it's like, oh, kindred spirit, you're my brother, my sister. So it kind of felt like that. Like just beautiful support. Like everybody's so supportive of each other.
Yes, absolutely. Now I want to get into some of your, most memorable projects that you worked on. And I want to start off in the year 1986. You played a very different version of Goldilocks in a Dead Time Story. It's a very fun movie. I have to imagine this was a very fun role to play. How did you get your role in the film, and what was your experience like working on this?
It was really fun and very up my alley. So I have a side of me that's so wacky. Like I just think of the Ramones. Like the Ramones were always my favorite band when I was a teenager, and their music and their lyrics are just so wacky. And also there was that time in the early 80s, there were movies like that. There were sometimes these just out there kind of comedies and stuff. But anyway, so the way I got it was I'm still in touch with the director who I adore, Jeff Dellman. He's such a sweetheart. Um, I just answered an ad. We had a paper called Backstage. I think that they have an online thing now, Backstage West, I think. Um, and there was a just a thing where you used to send your picture and resume in the mail back then. So I sent that in, and then there was another that like a repeat of it of the call that went out. So I sent it again, and I go in for the audition, and Jeff, he says he shows me my headshot without the resume on it, and he says, "This was from the first batch. I was looking specifically for you because this." I was like, "This is Goldilocks." This so he just really connected with my photo. And then I auditioned, and it worked out. Um, yeah, and it was just like a crazy psycho killer, Goldilocks, fairy tale. Um, and Jeff was great to work with. He was very open and let me be creative. And then Melissa Leo, who ended up doing amazing, as you know, she played Mama Bear, and she was so just really cool to work with. It was a really fun project.
Yeah, and something, it's funny you mentioned Melissa Leo because she's in those Equalizer movies with Denzel Washington, and I believe like the Equalizers, it's like your first credit on IMDb.
Oh my God. Yeah, right, right. Yeah, Equalizer was my first SAG job. That's how I got my SAG card.
Really? Wow, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was actually the I think she was the production designer who worked on Dead Time Stories, and she ended up casting Equalizer. I didn't even know it. I didn't know she was a casting director, or maybe she went into casting, and she kind of did me a favor because I mean anybody really could do that one line. I was doing one line as a maitre d in the Equalizer, and so she helped me get in. It was really nice.
So that was the first of many.
Yes, yes. I'm so fortunate.
Y-
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Now, I want to get back to Dead Time Stories because I just love how you play that character, how you play your like so cheering and stuff, but then it's just doing all these sinister things. It's just it's very entertaining.
That's funny. I think that's kind of who I was in a lot of ways back then, because I was always very smiley. I still am, you know, but underneath there was a lot brewing. You know, there was a lot of stuff, you know, coming from my mom was very wacky and quite a challenge. So there was a bit of rage. There was, you know, so it actually made a lot of sense, you know, that my character was so smiley and nice and, you know, just the sweetest and yet will kill you, you know. So a lot of fun.
Yes, and then another thing. Now let's go into the '90s. Now, you starred on a little sitcom that aired on Fox back in the '90s called Down the Shore. A very entertaining show, and I think a show that should have gone on for many, many, many more seasons than just two. How did you get involved with that production?
I just auditioned. And it was one of those roles where once in a while you get an audition, you're like, this is my role. Like I just knew it. I just was like, this is my role. And I know this person. I didn't think it was me, but I having grown up in Brooklyn and even though the character was from New Jersey, I just felt like I know this girl. Um, yeah, and I just fell right into her skin and yeah, my agent set up the audition and then I tested and it just worked out. It was really a fun job. And it lasted a good long time. I mean, 29 episodes like compared to nowadays where everything's so quick and ends. Um, but yeah, I mean, I did get a little tired of the attitude at that time, especially on TV, was the less clothes you wear, the better. You know, we'll get better ratings if you guys wear less clothes, and it's all about sex jokes. And you know, Married with Children was on back then. I love Married with Children. It's hilarious. But when my husband watches it, he watches so many old shows. I'm like, that is so sexist, and that is so like off, like these jokes, but it's still hilarious. Um, so, but you know, having to just you know parade in a bikini all the time and you know that's why that what the network wants it was just like I want to get to the Meryl Streep roles now. You know that's kind of how I was feeling. um but I still had so much fun and I love doing sitcoms like that because it's like doing theater because you have a live audience and it such a gives you such a high, you know, to be have the people's reaction right there. It feels really good.
Yeah. I mean, I could imagine how fun that is. Because because that environment, it's so, you're right. It's like theater. You're performing in front of a live audience, and you're kind of able to feed off of that energy, and it kind of builds up probably builds up like this adrenaline kind of inside you.
Yes, lots of adrenaline. Yeah. I tell my students like that's that's energy to be harnessed. It's a good, you know, like when you get nervous about something, instead of pushing it away and being like, oh no, I'm not cool. I need to be cool here. No, like that energy just can propel you and you can use it and transform it and you know, use it to create something funny or joyful or anything. It's energy to be harnessed. So I love that. I love that adrenaline and it's not just adrenaline. It's energy and especially you know the pandemic having to be on Zoom for friggin' 2 years at least and not especially auditioning just you know filming it and rather than being in the room and feeling the energy of the people I'm auditioning for. It's it that there's nothing like human energy. There's nothing you can't substitute that. It's so we need it so badly, you know. We need human interaction, and that's why it's, you know a lot of theaters are closing, especially around here because of COVID. even though we're out of COVID, but they just couldn't survive. And that it's kind of, it's a sad, it's a sad thing, you know. Um, but anyway, I'm going off on tangents.
Yeah, I really like the point you make about about having human interaction, face-to-face interaction. It's I think it's very important these days, especially because we have these things, there's
Mhm.
the phone, so we have these things and stuff. It's like sometimes we all get just so involved in our little phones all day that that's it's like we almost lose sight of just like the importance of just face-to-face interaction, conversing with other people and just that kind of stuff. I think it's very
Yes.
important, in this day and age.
Yeah, having been to New York over the weekend, oh man, I was just taking it in because in Los Angeles, you're a bit in your own bubble. And in New York, like my friend hardly goes on the subways. I guess there's stuff in the news, funky things are going on in the subways. But I was like, I'm going in the subways. I want to be like with everybody and like, and when I was on the subways, I was like putting my phone down. I just wanted to look at people, stare at them. Like when I was a kid, I used to really look at people on subways and think, what is their life about? What are they going through? No, I love that. It's so fun. And it's just interesting. And New York is so full of humanity, so many different kinds of people and ages and classes and languages and it was quite a treat going to New York.
Yes, absolutely. It's a very fun city to be in. There's like I said, you get exposed to all different kinds of people, which is really fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, I do notice a change in New York. Like it's kind of too expensive to live there for a lot of people. Um, but still, it's still a nice mix. Like you still could see all kinds of people if you get around enough. Um, but it attracts people from all over the world, which is really great.
Yes, of course. Now I want to talk about like something you created. I think it's so cool. You created your own one-woman show called Blended Salad. I think this is so cool that you did this. You based it to kind of off your experiences, growing up, with your family. When did you get the idea to, create this?
Well, it's kind of like how I was when I was a kid, and I was just looking at. I actually imagined my family like a movie. I was like, because I guess that was the art form that was the most reachable to people in my mind. So I kept thinking, this is a movie. This is a movie. All these people, and my mother, and this crazy house, um, and then how did I find out about a one-woman show? I just learned about the genre of it and learn how simple and easy it is because you don't need much money. You're doing it all yourself. So I started studying with a teacher named Mark Travis, and I just started writing different vignettes and stories from my experience, my family, and and yeah, just started performing them. And I loved being the different characters because as an actress, normally I have to look sort of like how I look, But as a one woman show, I was able to be anybody and anything. And so I was a males, different races, and um, so yeah, that was just so fun. Um, and yeah, so I mean, I also have been writing into a screenplay, into a pilot for TV. There's so many ways I was trying to tell the story, but the one woman show is kind of easy and portable. You know what I mean? So yeah,
And I imagine that was a very rewarding project to work on because that's yours, that's your own creation. You wrote it and everything. You came up with the idea. You performed it. I imagine it's just a very rewarding project to work on.
yeah, very rewarding, especially when people, because one of my stories was about junior high school or middle school, and how um, I was I was like the only white girl in my sixth grade, and all these Puerto Rican girls were teasing me and everything. It's kind of like the opposite of what a lot of people go through. Um, but I was just such a considered a weirdo, especially because my mother. So blended salad was what my mother made us eat 3 times a day. She was an extreme raw foodist
Mm.
um, before anybody heard of these things. Like she was, oh my God. So she'd make it, it was like a smoothie, but without fruit. And so that's what we would have. And then she'd give us like almonds for our protein. It was, I mean, it was like very extreme. So it made me rebel and go crazy. But my lunches at school were so embarrassing. They were like, for example, I'd have half of an avocado that turned brown and like alfalfa sprouts inside. She'd call it a bird's nest. And people would gather around me from my school. They would gather in the lunchroom and ask me like, "Ew, what is that? Let me see you eat that. That's so gross," you know. And it was a little traumatic, but also funny, you know. So a lot of my stories are kind of like that. They're from my pain, but they're funny. Um, and so it was so rewarding, people coming up to me afterwards and saying, "Oh my gosh, I went through that too. You know, I was ostracized and I was made fun of." And like art is so healing like that. When you have when somebody shares something personal, you'd be surprised how universal it really is, you know, and people can relate. And so, yeah, it's nice to have that immediate result too, that immediate response from people. That's what's so great about theater. You know, it's not like, all right, I find out a week later, you know, some review or whatever, or I shoot something and then, you know, I find out how it affected someone. I mean, there's the joy of just being in the moment and being in the character and having that experience. That's an amazing experience. But when you're doing theater, it's a communal experience. It's you're in your world, but you're also inviting somebody else, other people to be part of it. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think no, what's great about this is that you were able to take something from your past, something that maybe wasn't so great, but you're able to turn it into a great piece of art, and something that's something that's great, and I think that's so cool how you were able to do that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's I'm a Buddhist. I practice Buddhism. It's a organ with an organization called Soka Gakkai or SGI, and one of our one of our most important to me ideas is creating value. Actually, that's what Soka Gakkai means. It means value creating society. And so it's taking whatever we've gone through, whatever muck in our life, and transforming it. You know, so that art does that. You know, when you could take your pain or your anger or rage and create art out of it and influence other people with it, it's I think that's so powerful. When you take any darkness that you have in your life and you create something from it, I think it's so healthy.
Yeah, and I was actually going to ask, about you practicing Buddhism. I want to know how did that start, and in what ways has that impacted your life?
Well, I was always searching for some answer because my mom was honestly, she was kind of crazy. She was probably borderline personality disorder and a whole bunch of other stuff. She just never wanted to be diagnosed. So she was always searching herself, and she would try so many different religions. Oh my God, everything, and took me along with her to all kinds of things, meditation or born again Christian, so many different things. Um, this memory is coming up for me that is so hilarious. She was throwing something down the toilet, like some rotting fish, and while she's on the phone with me, and it starts coming back up, and she starts praying in all these different religions, just like Namyo Renge Kyo, Jesus saves, or like all these different things, Om Namah Shivaya, and it's just like doing every religion possible so the fish goes down the toilet. Anyway, it sounds crazy, but so anyway, I was always searching, and I was actually a born again Christian. I can't say I really was a born again Christian, but somebody stopped me on the street when I was 16, and I became born again and went to church for like about a year, and so I had that experience, whatever that was. I also meditated when I was a teenager, so I was always searching. And then when I was 21, I remember I was waitressing, and I was thinking, I bet there's somewhere you could go that you can meditate every day, and like it's free and it's a group or whatever. I wonder where, and then this guy just came up to me, this other waiter, and started telling me about Namyo Horenge Kyo, and there's these meetings, and I was like, oh my God, that's so weird. I was just thinking about that. So he tells me about the meeting. I go to the meeting. He wasn't even there. And I'm thinking, oh my God, these people are so weird. Like everybody just seemed really strange. But as you know, you can imagine, I'm also very comfortable with strange people. But I thought these people, I don't know, if this is for me, blah, blah, blah. But the guy who was talking at the end, I really connected with, and the chanting just felt really good. Um, and then little by little, I started doing it, and I was really surprised at how it affected me so quickly. I felt so good. Like one of the biggest benefits that I will never forget is I felt as if my whole life I had a bit of a cloud around me, like everything was a bit fuzzy. And then when I would chant, it's like I everything became clear, more clear. And and it wasn't like before. My perception was so tainted with my past and my emotions and my fears and anxiety. And when I chant, it like clears it away, and then I more see, who knows what reality is anyway. I mean, there's, well, especially nowadays, what's the truth? But it felt more like I'm actually seeing what's actually there without my own coloring everything. um, and little by little, my self-doubt, my my like the parts of me that were not true, the parts of me that were like those thoughts that are just like lies, those thoughts that are like like some troll is inside you saying you're never going to do this, or you're ugly, or you're aging, or all those things. It's like that voice just got hushed and hushed and hushed when I chant, and I still chant every day. It's kind of like brushing your teeth. Like if you don't brush your teeth, you get more tartar comes back, so it's like that. It's like I'm brushing my soul, and I start to see more clearly. And this feeling, so in Buddhism, it's like if we talk about that every single person is a Buddha. We don't worship like a god out there. It's more like our perception of God is that we are all part of God, and there's no higher being. There's no leader that's better than any other person. Even though we have a mentor in our practice, but he's not like a higher being or anything like that. Um, so I forgot where I was going with that. Um, yeah, so it's just a very down to earth practice. And what's another thing that's so cool is I've seen people really affected by it over time, and it's like they become more themselves. It's like they don't most organizations and religions that I've seen from the outside, people become more and more similar. And in my organization, I've been practicing over 30 years. I forgot the number now. I see people over the years really becoming more and more unique and more themselves with their own perception. Oh, Buddhahood. That's what I was going to talk about. I don't want this all to be about Buddhism. I'll just say this last thing is that the state of Buddhahood is a state of compassion, joy, freedom, a feeling of freedom. And when you chant, it's almost like immediate. You start to feel it. Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. Um, yeah. So anyway, that's kind of, I can go on and on. So,
Well, hearing that's really amazing. That has had such a great impact on your life, and that that's really it's really helped you. I think that's really powerful to hear. Really.
it's saved my life. It really saved my life. Sorry. Ugh. You think you put your phone on silent and anyway, it goes everywhere. Um, it saved my life, especially when I was 21, because I was so, vulnerable and feeling like I honestly, I was feeling like I wasn't worth living. My life wasn't worthwhile unless I was a big star. Like I didn't have any self-worth as a human being. And Buddhism had taught me that every person is valuable. Every person is a treasure. Every life, whether they're successful or not successful. And so over the years, it's just given me such support and got me through so many things in my life that I couldn't do without it. It's been great.
Yeah, hey, Lily, that's really great to hear. And and I think, and I'm really glad obviously, again, that has helped you, and and I'm glad that you're here today. I'll just be honest, I'm glad that you're here today, and that you've been able to entertain so many people throughout your career. And I'm sure that, and I'm sure that you've brought joy to a lot of people through your various roles. So I'm glad that you're here, and you've been able to to really use your great talents and gifts, and and use them to bring happiness to people. And I'll include myself in that. I'll include myself because you're one of my favorites. So I'll include myself in there as well.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. That means a lot.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like I said, you've done so many great things throughout your career. So and just throughout your life. And I think what you've done is really amazing. In acting, and then even behind the camera or off stage. I think you've done just a lot of great things.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Now, of course, we have to talk about your teaching, and I think it's cool because I believe your parents were teachers, so I think it's really cool that you're able to teach acting, and you're kind of able to do this. How did that start? When did you start teaching acting?
Fairly recently. I mean, I've done it over the years here and there, like a workshop here, a workshop there. But honestly, when I was, wanting to be an actress, my mother wanted me to be a teacher. And she was pushing me to be a teacher. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be an actress. So there was always this pushback about anything but acting, you know? And lately, especially when with COVID and feeling a little bit more like my hands were tied in terms of auditioning and stuff, I was like, how can my prayer when I was chanting, how can I give back the gifts I've been given? Like, how can I give? I have all these pearls, really like over time, and I've studied so many years with so many different teachers, and I've just been given so many gifts, and I really want to share that and share my wisdom, share my talent. Um, and honestly, only when I would chant would teaching come up. When I would be chanting, it'd be like, teach kids acting, this little voice inside me. And then I'd get up from chanting and be like, oh no, I'm not going to do that. I'm only an actress. No, 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 I'm fine. And then I go back to chanting and I'd be like, there it is again. There's that voice. And so then little by little, I just that voice got louder and louder. And I was like, okay, I'm going to look into this. And the timing of it was pretty unbelievable because my daughter's principal on Zoom in COVID was saying, we're looking for parent volunteers to come and after school, to just do something with the kids. And I was like, oh, I could teach acting, and she's like, great. And and I met with her and I said, they're going to be, honestly, they're going to be my guinea pigs. I'm giving this as a gift, but I'm also going to use them with the intention of designing a class of what I want to do. Um, and so many kids signed up. Oh my God, it was so many kids. And then I had to limit it. And even so, I felt like I had too many kids in the class. But I, so it was so funny. So at first I had this brilliant idea that I thought, because my daughter loves to read, she's 11 now, and she reads all these really interesting graphic novels and stuff, and I read them with her. And I thought, how about if I take the scenes and transcribe them from their stories, these that like their favorite books. So I asked all these kids' parents to send me, their favorite stories. So I did all this work, like digging through these stories and transcribing these scenes to make them actable for the kids. So I give them all these scenes, and these are 8, 9, 10 year olds, and they're into it, but then they're like rehearsing, and I'm teaching them how to rehearse. And they're like, okay, we're done after 3 minutes. And I'm just like, well, you could find more in there. What's the character about, and this and that. And they're like, oh, I'm good. I'm done. Yeah, this is it. And it's just like, oh my God, I thought that I was going to reinvent the wheel, and I had this brilliant idea. And I talked to my teacher, and he's like, they're too young for that. Like, they want to have fun. Like, you want to just really have a good time with them. And so then I completely reworked everything I was doing. And I went back to my roots, actually, which is improv. And I started to pick from and choose from different things I used to do, and I started designing this curriculum, and doing theater games with them and teaching them how to improv, and it started really going so well. And I realized how valuable improv is for just human beings. Because when I was chanting, it wasn't just I want to give back acting. Because I could teach kids how to act, I could teach them how to get into the business, get an agent, do an audition, blah 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 blah. But a part of me was like, do I want to send these kids down this path that's been so hard for me? Is that really what I want? And I was like, no, but this acting is so beautiful and can make such a difference that I want to give it back. I want to give back to them these tools that can enhance their life. Like that's what I want to do. I don't want to mold them into an actor. So I started seeing how the improvisation and the theater games were affecting these kids, and it was so amazing. Like the shyest kids were starting to blossom. They were starting to find their voice, find their funny, because a lot of times, like the kids would be at that age, wanting to be cool. I could see this beginning because my daughter's 11. It's like this age is like, oh my God, now I need to be cool. I need to find a way to be cool. And it's like, so I said to these kids, this is not the cool class. This is the class of weirdos. So if you want to be a weirdo, this is where you belong. And they were like, yay! So as I was telling them, this is about opening up your heart, and that is the opposite of cool. Like cool is shutting down. It's not feeling anything. And this is about exposing yourself, exposing your heart and your soul sometimes, they're more comfortable with comedy than they are with exposing their heart. But so I'm kind of an acting teacher once said, and I think he was quoting another acting teacher, but he was saying like how comedy can be the most powerful way to impact people because while they're opening up their mouths laughing, you put in the message. so so the laughter just opens you up, and then it's laughter is so healthy. Oh my God. So also I was studying in an acting class right before this, and I was also auditioning for and doing so many heavy roles. So many roles. Like I was crying in everything I was doing. And as you get older, most people have more terrible things happening to them. And so that's kind of like what's out there. But I was like, I am kind of a little tired of all this crying. I want to laugh. I want to go back to just there's so much to laugh about in life. And so these kids have been healing me and I feel like I've been helping them, and it's been really fun, and I'm really surprised at how it's mushroomed so quickly. Like so then I went from the doing it for free for the school and then doing it as a business and renting a space, and I now have two classes, two thriving classes, and we're off for July, but we're going back in August when school starts. And it's for 8 to 12-year-olds. And yeah, they come and I always have I have a very planned schedule, but I also give it a little wiggle room. So I want to see I make it's malleable. I want to see what works for them. And I'm not just forcing my own ideas onto them. Even like when I was doing those scenes, although at some point I'd love to teach scene work. I think it's so invaluable. But I love the feeling of an ensemble. We're an ensemble. That's what I'm trying to teach them, that we're on an ensemble. We're like one entity and we're supporting each other. Because a lot of times they want to stand out and be clever and be the funniest and the loudest and I'm like, that's not what improv is. Improv is supporting another person and sometimes making them look good, and then you create together. So I feel like I'm learning so much as I'm teaching, and it's just very rewarding. It's such a great age too. It's right before they get really gloomy, little middle school, they start to get gloomy and pouty, and then it's like, "Urgh." So I feel like I'm catching them before they get there.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because then then once they get to that age, hey, they'll still be cheery after taking the
Maybe. They'll be
but
cheery, maybe they'll be cheery, maybe not, but at least they've opened up that part of themselves and they remember it, you know?
yeah, absolutely. You were mentioning this when you were talking. I got to ask. So it's like what sort of games what sort of games do your students play? In your class.
So I steal from a lot of places. I've been getting a lot from whose line is it anyway?
Oh,
There's
not
some really fun. So one that we've been just starting to do the last couple of weeks that I think is hilarious. They that show that it's always really inappropriate when they use this. Anyway, the exercise is called living scenery, and it's so fun. So and for adults it could get inappropriate, but with the kids they're not. They're really cool. So you have two actors who are doing an improv, and they have a situation, and the more simple and mundane the better. Like two actors, like I just did one where they're setting up a campsite. So and then there are other two actors who are the props. There's no props, but so as they're doing it, they're like, hey Joe, can you grab that hammer over there? I need to put this tent up, and so while you're saying that, somebody jumps in and they're a hammer, or somebody jumps in and they're the tent, and so they're manipulating the humans are becoming the props, and it's really fun, really hilarious. And you have to think on your feet, you have to really listen and be spontaneous, and so that's a really fun one. I really love, they don't love it as much as me, but they do love it. It's called Alien Translator because I love doing gibberish. I think it's so cool because I love languages, so I love creating your own language. So you have two aliens and you have a translator between them, and they have to translate each other what they're saying. So you have somebody speaking in gibberish, and maybe he's using his body to explain what he's doing, and the translator has to translate what they think that person's saying, and then vice versa. So it's almost like a game of telephone in a sense, because they're perceiving what they think, that person's saying, and it becomes just so fun, creative. And then other things like I saw that they were so into costumes and props. So I went to like Goodwill and just got a whole bunch of wacky things. So I have this giant, treasure box full of wacky costumes and stuff. And so I do this thing. It's a little similar to this game and Whose Line Is It Anyway, but I made it up myself. And anyway, so I just take something and I throw it at them and they have to start a scene. So like I'll just a random object, a random piece of clothing, go. And they have to go with the person next to them. And they just have to like jump in and create something. The next person, next person. So I used to make it where they would, I also have like a bag of where they have to close their eyes and pick like a location, close their eyes and pick a relationship. And I get them together and they would, like work on it and write something in a sense, like work it out and say, okay, we're going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. And that was good and had its purpose. And sometimes I'd even have them write out a scene and then I would transcribe it and like hone it a little bit for them and then they perform it. And that was great. And that teaches them writing. I really enjoyed doing that actually. But I found they had more fun when it was just spontaneous, no preparation. And I think there's so much value to that, because they're so at that age of like, let me please the teacher, let me please, I need to be somebody I'm not. And when you're improvising and you're completely spontaneous, there's no time for that. You can't plan it. So I'm kind of leaning more in that direction of just being on the spot and making things up, you know, reacting to each other. I'm trying to really teach them to take in each other. Because I have some hams in my class. I have some who are like, look at me, I had the most brilliant idea. I'm so brilliant. And they are. They really are brilliant ideas. And I'm like, oh my God, like maybe, and sometimes I even have them direct things because they're such good directors and they have such good ideas. But they're the ones who need that other muscle of like, how do I support somebody else's idea and react to that. So it's so great. And every kid brings something different, which I just love. Some are more outgoing, some are less outgoing, some are definitely not actors. Like you can tell, like they're never going to be in this career. Like that's not for them. But they're gaining so much and they're having fun, which is the most important thing. And that's going to serve them in anything they do. Whether they're working in an office and they learn that they're going to be more comfortable talking to people, or realizing that their ideas matter. Their ideas are gold. Rather than like, oh, I have to learn something and now my idea is important. No, what's on the top of your head, what's in your imagination, that's great. That's gold. That'll take you far. So I think there's a lot of value to it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point you make. I think it's a great point you make because like yes, you're teaching acting and stuff, but you're teaching these kids lessons that can be applicable in not just acting, but they can be applicable in a variety of different areas, and I think that's something really good, and then even if these some kids don't go into acting and they, like you said, they go into some other thing. I think that that's still your class, like your teachings are having a great impact on these kids, and I think that's really special.
Thank you. I hope so. I hope so. Yeah.
Yes, and then just kind of overall, what would you say, or are just like the most important lessons, that you want your kids, to have learned, when they, when they leave your class? What are the most important lessons, that you want them to, I guess have instilled and whatnot?
Um, well, one is that their voice is invaluable. I say to them that there is no other human being on the planet that has ever lived or will ever live just like you. And your voice is essential for this world. So I want to really instill that. And I also want to instill that so is everyone else's. So that they have that sense of any human being in front of me is really a treasure. And it's like my Buddhist values, so that so because I go back to my middle school years, that's something that really impacted me so much that, and I think of that time in kids' lives that when you start to feel like do I matter? Am I important? Do people like me? Do I like them? Maybe I need to be cool so they'll like me, and all this nonsense, all this unhealthy stuff that I experienced and I had in me, and I feel like part of my teaching is to I want to get them before they get there. I want to try to undo what happened to me, so that little bit of like my daughter is in this. It's so interesting. I feel like I'm I almost went with her to school because it was such a beautiful experience. Her elementary school was such just a gem in my neighborhood. It's a public school, and it was such a beautiful community. Everyone was so supportive of each other. And I've just heard that it's not always the case, like even with little kids, like they're not always supportive of each other. They can bully each other, and obviously, there's a lot of bullying in the world, um, and bullying comes from, in my opinion, an insecurity. Like when you hate yourself and you're so worried about yourself, you want to you project that, and you want to hurt somebody else, or it's from fear, it's from pain. So the more I can just bring joy to these kids, the less I think there's going to be bullying, and you know and I also think that kids are like the most not the most important part, but they're an important part of a family. And when the kids are happy, everybody's happy. Like parents want more than anything for their kids to be happy. I know because I'm a parent. Like I will do anything for my daughter. When I'm broke, I will get her the nicest class. Like I don't care. I'll find a way, because if she's happy and thriving, we're all going to feel better. So I feel like if these kids are happy and they go home and they're affecting their family and they're affecting their parents, like that is so powerful. Um, so you can't cure cancer with this, but I'm trying to have an impact, and do the little I can.
Right, and I think that's just it's just wonderful that that you're working to to make an impact on these no on your students' lives and stuff, and really and have a really positive effect on their lives. I just think that's wonderful, and I think that and you're not just helping to to maybe to maybe help create perhaps a new generation of actors. You're just you're just instilling good values in these kids, and you're teaching them very valuable lessons, and I think that's something just so important and great.
Thank you. And I feel like also what I'm teaching is a good springboard if they do want to be an actor. Like it's a good beginning. I think improv is the healthiest beginning to acting, because when you're doing scripted scenes and you're just pre-planning so much, like if you're pre-planning how you're going to feel, you're not present. So for them to have that experience of improvisation, they're going to have, they're going to expect that, which I kind of did from because I started with improv. You kind of expect that in your acting. You're looking for that authentic experience because that's how you started. So I think it's a good, I think it's a good way to start acting. I actually feel, you know, I don't mean to criticize other forms of teaching, but I feel like there's a lot of teaching of acting that is just detrimental to the artist. And children are so vulnerable. Um, and there's enough pressure on them as it is, you know, to be something, be this, be that. And, you know, there's some schools that I feel are a little confining and not helping that child become all of who they are. You know, that's my intention. You know, hopefully I'm on that path. But I think if a teacher doesn't have that intention, I think it's really not good. You know.
Yeah, see, and that's why that's why, if there's anyone listening to this who has a kid who wants to go into acting, that's why they need to go to you.
Yes, please. I'm in Silver Lake. And yeah, that'd be great. They got to be between 8 and 12. And yeah, I'd love to meet some kids, some more kids who want to come.
Yeah, yes, of course. Let's see. Do you have? I'm sure you have like a website for your classes, right? There that people can go to online.
I do. So it is, it's Cathryn de Prume actingstudio.com. So it's my name, which is spelled Cathryn, de Prume, Deprume, actingstudio.com.
Yeah, yes. So if there's anyone listening, you better go to that website. If you have a kid who wants to go into acting, then go to that website right now. You can
Yeah, well, I've been at this for so long and I started so young. So I feel like I have a good idea of where I think it would be healthier to go. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't I like my daughter was dabbling in it a little bit. Like I would never put her in a scene that would be like something horrible or hard. Like I it depends on the child, but I think your child comes first, not their career. There's plenty of time to look into a career. Um, Geez, my sorry. You know, there's time to find out who they are, and some kids are ready. There, I've met some kids who are like, "You are ready. Go audition. Like, go for it." Um, and then some kids, it's like you you want to find out. I mean, it's kind of my parenting approach, which is who is my child? What are what are what do they want to say? What who are they about? Um, and go from there. And if they want to be an actor, great. I mean, but it's such a hard life. Like ask over and over, like, is this the best thing? If is this what they really, really, really want? And if they do, go for it. There's nothing more fun than when you're acting on a set and playing pretend on a set with other actors. Oh my God, it's so friggin' fun. But to try to get a job, that's hard journey. Um, so yeah.
Yes. And now I just have one last question for you right here. As we've been talking about throughout this interview, you've had such an amazing career and really you've had an amazing life, really. But what would if there is anything, what would you say is the thing that you are most proud of?
My daughter. I know it sounds like every parent, but oh my gosh. We adopted her when she was a baby and when she was just born, and I'm so proud of her. She's so herself and down to earth and not people pleasing the way I was, like I feel like she's going to be okay in the world, and that makes me so satisfied and happy. Um, yeah.
Wow, wow, that that's really great to hear. That really is, and I mean she couldn't have gotten where she's today without an amazing mom. So I think you've done a
Oh,
great job.
thank you so much.
Yes, of course. And we'll seriously just thank you so much for letting me speak with you today. Just truly an honor, and as a fan of your work, this is truly an amazing experience. Truly, and just thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. It's been my pleasure.